Hey everyone, and welcome to the Balanced Bodies Blueprint. I am your host, Vinny Russo.
And I'm your co-host, Dr. Eryn Stansfield.
And we're shifting gears from all the conventional fitness narrative you hear on most fitness podcasts, as our main emphasis lies in preventative healthcare, adopting a holistic approach to nutrition, and challenging the traditional views on various fitness topics.
Our mission with this podcast is to provide you with the information you need to achieve optimal health.
And on today's podcast, we are doing an episode of IMOs. So in our own opinions, we basically said to each other, we're going to ask each other 10 questions that we didn't look at yet. We're going to ask each other 10 questions each and just give us our thoughts and opinions on those 10 questions. Obviously, it's going to deal with health, wellness, and fitness. But I think this is a nice little breakup from having some guests on and doing a lot of the research and stuff. So it's mainly going to be about there'll be relevant stuff, right? You're going to ask me some relevant questions.
It's also a little bit more personal, so you can kind of get the personal side of our takes on certain things.
Well, now I might have to change a few of my questions if you want to get personal. But yeah, I'll let you decide. Do you want to answer first or do you want to ask first?
Why don't you ask first?
Okay, I'll ask first. So my first question to you, Dr. Eryn, is when you listen to people on social media and they talk about, blood work and labs and all these numbers and stuff, what is your biggest pet peeve with that?
I think it's usually the person who is speaking about labs. The first thing I look at is if they're qualified to speak about labs or clinical data at all. So if it's usually a coach or an influencer, I kind of scroll past it because I don't like to listen to bullshit. So, but if I happen to listen and they are unqualified, it's usually ordering unnecessary labs. So we've talked about this on past podcasts, but like a reverse T3, for example, or if they're promoting Dutch testing. So any labs that aren't, one, clinically indicated, and two, not even clinically verified. They're not really accepted as real lab tests. I'm not necessarily speaking about the reverse T3. I'm talking more to the Dutch testing. So the first thing I look at is if the person is qualified. And I think that's my biggest pet peeve is there's a lot of unqualified people out there promoting lab work or even like labs that you can send in sometimes. That's another one where you send it in and where does the interpretation come from? Is it a verified lab? So that's another one as well. Like you see a lot of ads on social media to send in blood work. You have to be very careful about what lab you're sending it to and who reads the exams, who's going to interpret that for you. Hopefully it's somebody that is qualified to do so.
Yeah, I think like when people see that or hear that, it's more or less like, oh, this is pretty convenient. Like I could just do this, send it in and get my results. But it's like, well, what do you do with those results?
Yeah.
And is there someone that's going to try to tell you what to do with the specific results that you have? Because if so, are they even qualified?
Well, and you got to think that, right? So a lot of things are advertised are a marketing scheme. So, if you think that they're trying to market something, they probably are. So if you have a slight abnormality, let's say on the lab, it might not be clinically significant in like a medical professional. If they were looking at it, might not be clinically significant, but the person interpreting it might recommend some supplement or vitamin or something else that they're going to sell to you. So you gotta think that it could be a marketing scheme as well. So I know a lot of people see pharmaceuticals that way, like they're marketing. So you gotta view the supplement companies in the same light.
Yeah. There was also another, I wouldn't say it's new, but it's pretty recent and starting to catch some wind now. And it's a test that they use to actually determine if you're getting enough omega-3s. Have you seen this?
No.
Yeah, you skip over that stuff.
No. Yeah, what do I think about that? First off, the first question is, do you need omega-3s? That's the first question. and they can be beneficial. So I won't knock them too badly. Uh, yeah, I'm not even sure how you would go about measuring that or what the normal range for that is. And
Well, we
my
might have to do another episode strictly on that then. Okay, well, so your biggest pet peeve is number one, people that are not qualified talking about it, and then also if they're gonna do it and send it in, well, who's looking at it?
yeah.
And what was the other one? Like
Um,
three little pet peeves.
yeah, just be careful about the advertising for labs. Like,
We'll cut
um,
that out. Don't worry about it. I'm cutting this out. All right, so we'll end right where you did, and then all right. So those were your pet peeves. What question you got for me?
all right. So we got in a conversation the other night, and I thought it was interesting. So I kind of want to hear the answer, the official answer now. I think you've changed some beliefs since meeting me and getting to know me over the last few years. So I want to know what beliefs that you had prior that you changed um, because of knowing me and maybe the medical perspective or the physician perspective on fitness.
Yeah. Um, so in regards to fitness, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So number one is going to be the supplements. You open my eyes to how there's lack of quality in terms of research. And when I went for my master's in applied clinical nutrition, a lot of it was um, there was like a whole section on herbs, which led into supplements. So I was under that assumption that like, hey,
Which
we
led
have
into selling supplements.
not me, not me in particular, and the course, no, but we could get into other certifications I did that try to push that. Um, but it was really just the lack of quality evidence for supplementation. So that was a big thing that changed. Also, um, a big thing that changed was the perspective the general population has on doctors in general. I didn't know how negative it was until like you start seeing all these social media influencers now saying, "Don't trust your doctors, trust this functional person, this functional practitioner." And with you and then your connections and then getting like someone like Hormones Demystified on our podcast, it just really broadened my perspective to understand that this whole stuff with how doctors are paid by big pharma to push medicine. It's not like that at all. And you guys don't get a paycheck at all.
I wish
And
we did.
yeah, I know you in particular, you really want to help people. And you're gonna have some bad grapes in the bunch, like you're gonna have some doctors do some shady shit for their benefit. And that sucks, but that's with every profession. And I don't think that profession of, being a medical provider should be generalized because of a few bad grapes. Um, I don't think, the government helps at all, especially with what happened with COVID and Dr. Fauci coming out. Once again, now people associate doctor with Dr. Fauci. So it's just, I would say the beliefs in terms of, how I thought people looked at doctors and how they actually look at them, and also the whole supplement aspect of health and wellness. Now, I do still believe in supplementation. I feel like they should, fill the gaps of what you are missing, and they can help just cover the basis. If you feel like you're not getting enough from your nutrition plan, but it's not like a savior. It's not a replacement. It's like a just in case.
Yeah,
So
and I would agree with that. And it's funny because there is a lot of mistrust in our medical system. And to be honest, like on the patient side, I've been on the patient side as a cancer patient, and I can tell you that I can see where the mistrust comes from. Mistakes are made, medical mistakes are made, and some doctors aren't the best doctors. And unfortunately, people experience that. But there are really good physicians out there that mean really well. It's just a matter of finding that person that you click with. And, my mom is one of the biggest opposers of doctors sometimes. She always is challenging me and saying, why don't physicians learn this, or why don't this physician didn't spend enough time with me. So I understand where the mistrust comes from.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Mm.
I like that. My second question for you is, and this is a little bit personal and kind of funny at the same time because I want to talk about it. Um,
No.
when when you're on regimen and when you're on point, how often would you actually train your legs per week?
I would train 3 times a week at least, because that came from me. No, nobody told me that. Um, I think my
What's the
coach
philosophy
at,
behind this?
I think my coach at the time had twice a week, and I thought it would be better to do 3 times a week. The philosophy was as a bikini competitor, so I wanted to grow my legs, obviously, because that's what is the biggest, um, I guess, one of the biggest scoring areas for NPC bikini. And
Lower body.
yeah, and yeah, so but I will say that I saw something recently. I haven't looked into the research, but it said somebody cited a paper, which again, this is bad form on my end. I should know the paper, but they said that you know, the more strength you have in your legs, the bigger your leg muscles, that it might be correlated with mortality. Like,
Well, yeah, no, I saw that too. The strength. Well, I feel like that leads into aging though. So like if you have strong legs going into your elderly
yeah,
stages, you're gonna hold yourself upright more. You'll be able to get around more
yeah,
efficiently, which helps with socialization, which therefore helps with like the psychological aspect of aging as
yeah,
well. But you told me too, like falls are like one of
yeah,
the
yeah,
biggest
that's a
reasons
big
why
issue.
people,
And that's like with longevity stuff, lower extremity strength is important because one of the things that we do, or one of the things that geriatric physicians do, for example, is they test if you can rise out of a chair in a seated position. So it's kind of a semi squat. And if you can do that with ease, um, there is some correlation to say that you may live longer because you're less injury prone
yeah.
from falling because you have stronger lower body.
Yeah, and I think you're a little modest with your number of 3 times per week. I'm gonna say at minimum maybe 4 times a week you would do it. Every time I talk to you, I'd be like, "So, would you train today, legs? Legs again? Oh yeah. What do you mean? Yeah, you're gonna let them work." So my whole thing was, and you obviously have very muscular legs. Um, but my thing is like you got to allow it to recover. And I'm not sure you're allowing enough time to recover. The thing with that too is though, like depending on your training age and how long you've been doing it, your body might even be acclimated to that type of training, right? To where it's not even really going to respond unless you do more volume. With that, it's almost like running, right? If you're a marathon runner, you're not going to really get that great of a workout from doing something like 30 minutes on a treadmill.
Well, that's why I don't coach for a living.
Yeah. Well said, well said. But I had to put that out there because I just needed everybody to know that you train your legs at least 4 times a week. Doesn't allow any recovery, and even when she's sore, she's still gonna do it.
Maybe it's fun.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
As long as you enjoy it.
All right, you're next. You're up. All right. So recently
Mhm.
you've gone into this cut phase and you
Yeah.
look great.
Oh, thank you.
And every day when I see you in the morning, I'm a little jealous. So what influenced you to go into this cut phase?
Well, first things first. I'll get into the real reason in a second, but let me preference this real quick. You got me a photo shoot.
Yes.
You bought me a photo shoot as one of my presents, Christmas.
Yeah.
And um, I obviously was like, all right, well, let me do a competition and the photo shoot like in the same month. So it's pretty cool. It'll be like probably my last competition. I say that all the time. So it's probably my last competition. I'll do the photo shoot then. And like, I just need to get started. So what actually made me get started was we have a friend, very good friend of mine. He had a wedding out in Jamaica, and I wasn't in pretty good shape at all. And we had people there. Two of my clients were there. Like it was just, I felt very, I felt very sloppy and insecure um, around them and just in general. And I didn't like the way that felt. And I was like, yeah, I went through this hiatus where I didn't want to train, leading up to this event. It was a few months where I was just like, I would go into the gym for a half an hour, do some half-ass shit and just get out. It was just like to check a box. It wasn't even to make any progress. My diet was half-ass. And it was more like, all right, I'm going to just focus on life, focus on the business. And that's where like my priorities were. And then I would say probably in the beginning of April, I started to really get back into the gym and I started really like going. And I'm like, all right, this is just, you got to deal with those ebbs and flows of motivation and things to that nature. So I started getting back into it. I'm like, damn, I wish I had this a couple months ago so I didn't have to look like the way I looked. But even then, it was just like, all right, so I go out there, we're in Jamaica, don't really feel that comfortable. And it was just like, I don't want to feel like this. And I could empathize, and what?
Empathize.
Yeah, I said it right. I was like, emphasis. I get empathize with my clients who feel like that, right? I've always been like that since I was young. I've always had this insecurity that I needed to get over. So I was always good with being able to put myself into their shoes. And I was always that coach that like looked the part and people thought I was a robot, which I didn't really like that much because I'm fucking not. But the discipline's always there, and letting myself go to that extent to where I wasn't really training, focusing on diet, wasn't doing cardio, just doing a lot of steps. I didn't like it. And I think it was almost like a disservice to the people who I coach. So it flipped a switch in me, and now I am where I am, and I feel pretty damn confident now.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, let's go to yours. There's another good one that I love. I can't wait to hear this answer. Name one person on social media that gives you douche chills.
So I'm gonna say their content, not the person, but their content,
Okay.
because I can't speak because I don't know this person. But Vince Pitstick. And I won't go into too much detail, but I will say that if you know anything about us and about validated clinical testing, um, I think you would get an idea of why uh, his content could be potentially um, misinformed towards some particular clients.
Yeah, I would say, well, I don't know him personally either, but from the few conversations I had with him, I thought he was like a really genuine, good dude. He kind of comes off that way as well, so I don't attack his character at all. But I will say that he puts out a ton of content that goes directly against physicians. And your doctors don't know this. Have you been seeing the same doctor and they haven't figured it out yet? Well, guess what? I know. And it's like, what medical training have you been through? How many years of schooling have you been through to be able to say you did this? I mean, I know you have a background in supplementation with metagenics, but what makes you a functional practitioner that can say that they know more than, for example, an endocrinologist who has over 13 years of schooling alone specializing in hormones? And you're going to say you know more than them? That to me is a little bit arrogant. His content doesn't really come off arrogant though, which I think is why it's so appealing. Like
I will
he's
say that
charming.
if
He's
I was looking as a lay person who maybe trying to visualize myself in a patient's shoes, and if I had been to a lot of doctors and didn't trust doctors, I absolutely could see how his message would be a message of hope.
Mhm.
So, and I think that's what concerns me is um, because of that.
Yeah.
I think you have to be very careful with some of the people who give out that kind of hope without maybe having the clinical background to back it up.
Yeah. And I want to say, I feel like just from when I think of like the kind of person that he is, I don't think he's doing any or trying to do harm. I think he really believes that he's helping people, which is why he puts out the content that he does and has the supplement companies that he does. I think he does believe that. So this is definitely not an attack on his character. I think it's more or less a rebuttal against the content he puts out, especially against physicians.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could see why that gives you douche chills because you are a physician.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, you're up.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. My next question is, all your friends describe you as a person with great willpower. I would include that. I would also see that in you. How did you acquire that skill, hone that skill? And do you think it's helpful when pursuing your physique goals?
Yeah, I did get that a lot, and a lot of people call it willpower. I just call it discipline. Over the years of me being an athlete, and I'll give you a couple examples. So prom weekend, you go down to the Jersey Shore, and you get a motel with your entire class, and you probably have another high school that you're friends with, and they rent out the same rooms, and you guys just party all weekend. Um, I on Saturday, which is like the best day to be there, I had to go home and run sprints because I was going to play college football and I wanted to be in shape. And I left early to go run sprints with my father. Um, that's just a sign of discipline. And then one of my coaches, when I won a few awards in high school, he gave a nice little speech saying how on 9/11 he remembers me as a freshman. School was closed and everything, but he was driving by the football field and he saw me out there running in a parachute. And I was the only one person. It's the only person out there. And it's not like I have like the willpower to do it. It's just I had an idea that what I wanted to be, and I had the discipline to help me get there. So I don't really think it's willpower. Can I refrain from eating cookies and shit? Yeah, because I tell myself, do I need it or do I want it? If I don't want it, I don't fucking need it. Like if I need it for survival, I'll eat it. Um, but I just feel like it was just practice over a long period of time, and it started out when I was very little, which made it so easy for me to basically transition into adulthood with it. Is it useful for pursuing physique goals? Of course. You need discipline in order to get to where you need to get to, especially if you're stepping on stage.
All right.
Your next one, and it kind of, well, I guess it kind of goes with this question a little bit. Do you see the pursuit of fitness as a form of narcissism?
Well, I'm gonna give the classic answer is it depends. Um, I think it depends on the motive, right? So it certainly can be. Um, I think if pursuing fitness and doing you know, going to lift or doing cardio every day, if that makes you feel good or it's like a health thing, then that's not necessarily narcissism, right?
Mm.
But if you're just focused on the external and um, and if that gives you some form of entitlement sometimes, which I think happens on social media, especially as people get lean, um, then, I think it could be taken to a different level.
Mhm.
And obviously, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to go into the DSM-5 of, of narcissism, but, I think that it certainly can be unhealthy if taken to an extreme.
Yeah, I think if you start thinking that you're better than people because you attained a certain physique and that makes you more superior, it's kind of like this guy. There's this guy on social media. He's a very rich individual. He went to prison. He got out and has this crazy business. He's all tatted up. His name's Wesley or Weston or something like that. And he just talks down to people if they're not in shape, and he like, oh, why should fucking people listen to you when you look like that? And it's like, dude, like, who are just because you have a ton of money and you take steroids and you have a decent build, you went to prison for 10 years. Like, why would people even listen to you? You know what I mean? Like, so I just feel like there's a form of narcissism there, or maybe it's like a Napoleon syndrome with some people, but it can definitely get there once you start belittling people because they don't have a physique that you think is good enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you're right.
It's my turn.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right. This was a good one. We just watched the series Sprint on Netflix. I highly recommend it, especially
very
if you
good.
like running. And so this made me think of this question. If you had the opportunity to compete in a competitive sport now with your current skill set, what would it be?
My current skill set.
Yeah.
So, so by current skill set, not ones that I'm working on now and that haven't fully developed, sort of like what I have to use. Like if I had to be thrown into something right now,
Yeah.
baseball, without a doubt. Baseball is my natural sport. Um, yeah, that would definitely be it. I would have said boxing, but I'm not there yet. Especially with the fucking the lesson I had today. I was, oh, anyway, I won't even get into that. But baseball just came naturally to me. I was better in baseball than I was in football. But I was just known for football because our team was better in football than it was in baseball. Our baseball team wasn't that good. Um, but yeah, it was just natural to me. And I remember like if like going outside to practice for football, I hated football practice. I hated it. I just wanted to play the game and that was it. Baseball, if practice was canceled or rained out, I got upset. Like I was pissed, and I didn't want to practice in the gym. And if I did, I was like, whatever. But going outside in the rain, whatever it was, like I just always wanted to play. And I could say I chose the wrong sport in life, but if I chose differently, I wouldn't have met you or been where I am today. So I'll take that with grace. All right, let's get a little bit into more of like your field of knowledge. Do you think it would be a good thing if medicinal advances in fitness, like the GLP-1s that we see today, can one day replace, not help, but actually replace their traditional approaches to maintaining health?
Um, all right. So currently, this isn't the case. Do I think it would be good? Yes. I have, if somebody said you could take this pill and make your health better and make you even look better because you'd lose weight and the side effects were minimal, so the benefits outweighed the risks, I would absolutely um think that that is great. I think the advances in modern medicine, and maybe that's why I'm a big proponent of traditional medicine, are amazing. They're here to help us. And I think the advancement of these set of drugs is amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's going to help a lot of people, especially a lot of people that are at risk, people that are risk for heart disease, diabetes. They've even shown some cancer benefits with these medications. And then on top of it, you get the weight loss, which a lot of people can move better and can, do more things with their life. I think it's incredible. And I think right now we're at a point where we still have to do the work, right? You still have to have those lifestyle changes in order to maintain that weight and those health benefits. And I think that's great. I think that's good right now. If that went away one day because we invented some more medication, or I think that necessarily wouldn't be a bad thing to have that option.
Yeah, I look at it from both sides here, and I'm like, there's so many more benefits you get, like to your psyche and stuff when you go to work out, the endorphin release, the stress release, when you go to do these exercise like movements. But then again, if you could just take a pill and it gives you the benefits of exercising, step count, and weight loss, like diet, and you could spend more time with your kids or you can spend more time with your family, the things that really make life, then it's a good thing, right? So I'm kind of on the fence there. I don't really know which way to go. I just feel like there's so many benefits that you get from doing the movements and going through that and pushing yourself past your limits and feeling that struggle and actually developing some character through that. I feel like character would go to shit without a doubt because you have nothing to work for. Like you just take a pill and it's all there for you. You just enjoy life. I think that is the end goal of life, though.
What if you could shift that focus though and develop other talents because you're not spending so much time in the gym?
I mean, you could say that, but how much time do you spend in the gym?
I don't know. Some people spend a lot of time.
I mean, you're looking at
How
45 minutes to
how
an
much
hour a
time did
day.
you spend today?
Did a boxing class for an hour.
And then
And
did you lift today?
no, today's my off day.
Okay. But you usually lift.
Yeah, it was lifting 45 minutes for me.
Still, it could have been an hour and a half where maybe you would have done something else.
Yeah, maybe. Speaking in hypotheticals.
Well, speaking of that, what if you yourself let's talk about you.
Is this
Could,
your next question?
yes, my
Okay.
next question.
Okay.
You could take a magic pill and it would give you all of the benefits of being lean, let's say.
Mhm.
And let's say it preserves muscle mass, because I think that's still an issue with the GLP ones. What would you do that?
There's no risks.
No risks.
I'd take it. I gotta collect some anecdotal evidence on myself, right? Some anecdotal data. I would definitely take it, but I wouldn't stop doing what I do.
Yeah.
You know, like if I'm on a pill that makes me extremely lean, in a healthy way, and actually builds muscle, and I don't have to do that much, I'm still gonna do it.
Yeah.
It's part of my lifestyle, so I wouldn't give that stuff up. But yeah, I'd take it and see what happens, and
I would too.
yeah, why not?
Yeah.
If it once again outweighing, the benefits have to outweigh the risks, and honestly have minimal risks.
Yeah.
If you're like, yeah, take it and you got a 50% chance of living, I'm not doing that.
Of course.
You know.
Yeah.
All right. Do you well, because we're on this, trying to get to our best physical shape, do you believe that trying to attain physical perfection is an endless pursuit?
In some ways it is. I think you hit a certain point and then you want more, right? It's like any goal in life, especially the people that tend to be into fitness. I feel like it's always a moving goal, right? It's never perfect.
Mhm.
And it shouldn't be. You should always achieve or strive to um, be your best self. And I think that it's it's never actually perfect. It's going to sound cheesy, but it's about the journey, right?
Yeah,
It's about enjoying putting in that work. It's enjoying that work. That's the actual joy.
yeah, yeah. There's always going to be another peak.
Yeah.
Once you reach one peak, you'll see one off in the
Yeah.
distance. Um, just as an example, like taking me right now, I would be very content with the way I look right now and maintaining this. I look at myself, I'm like, oh, I wish there was this, I wish there was that. But if I had to choose this body, I would be happy. But maybe that's just because I'm growing a little bit, or maybe I'm just getting tired of trying to
I think
chase
you should,
perfection.
I don't know. I think that you should always appreciate the body that you're in.
I'll tell you what, fucking seeing what I look like at the end of April and comparing it to now, I definitely appreciate this now. It's funny because when we look back at pictures, and I sent you a picture, and I was like, oh, remember, like I was like complaining about this,
Mhm.
and I was like, when I was in this bad shape, I'd call it. I was like, man, I would kill for that right now, and I was complaining about it when I had it. So that's just the thing with me, is there's always going to be another peak. So I believe it's an endless pursuit, just because of the way I am.
Yeah, but I think also looking at the big picture, like I'm grateful that I can walk every day
Yep.
and I don't have any paralysis in my body. Um, and so I think it doesn't matter what phase you're in, it's learning to appreciate that phase.
Yeah, we're getting into gratitude now.
Yeah.
This is Balanced Bodies Gratitude, episode 1. All right. You're up.
I am. All right, I'm gonna go to what is, oh, I like this question. What is the biggest misconception people that view you on social media have about you? And I had some big misconceptions about this guy before I actually met him.
Um, well, I can't say on social media, it's probably that I'm mean. A lot of clients say that when they join, they're like, "Oh, you're not as stern or like as much of a dick as I thought you were," and I think that's just because of my predominant eyebrow. It just makes me look mean and masculine, I guess. I would say that would be one. Um, hmm, because I heard it from clients. What I think sometimes, well, no, because they listen to my content. I feel like if you just saw a picture of me, it'd be different. It would be like it was in college. Like this kid is just he likes to train and he's a meathead and he has nothing to offer.
I thought two things. So, one, I thought you're a meathead and you had zero brain cells. And then I talked to you and I was like, oh, he's actually fairly intelligent. So,
Fairly, fairly.
That was my first thought. And then what was my other thought was you come across as very confident. And so I was like, this is gonna be a guy who has a ton of ego. And I was surprised by how humble you are. When you are wrong, you will say I'm wrong.
It's
And
hard. It's hard for me to say that. So.
but I was impressed by that. And also you have a lot of respect for other people's fields, and you know your limitations. And I think that's a very one intelligent thing to do, and um, it grants a lot of intellectual respect.
So you thought I was an idiot with a huge ego.
Yes.
Okay. I'm glad we debunked that. I will say the one thing that I feel is a pretty big compliment is the humbleness. And that's something that I had when I was younger. And honestly, my parents drilled that into me. Like, give credit where it's due, let other people talk about you. You don't talk about yourself, you know, they'll speak louder than you can. So I will say that was a very nice compliment. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for thinking I was an idiot and not and now knowing that I'm not.
I'm just very honest.
What do you think? We want to talk about misconceptions. So, what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about achieving and let's just call it, for lack of a better term, aesthetically pleasing physique?
I think people think I have to spend hours in the gym, kind of like you alluded to. And I think that's a big misconception because when I got into fitness, I would spend a lot of time doing tons of cardio and I got nowhere.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I realized how important diet was.
Yeah.
Diet's such a huge key. And that changed my life. And then also varying my training and getting more into resistance training.
Mhm.
But I think people think they have to spend hours in the gym. I like to spend a long time in the gym because I like it,
Yeah.
but not everybody has to do that. Little changes can make a huge difference. And it's about consistency, like doing those changes. Like if you get your steps in every day, that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that that really goes a long way.
Mhm. Okay. I would say, yeah, I'd agree to that.
Yeah.
That's a very big misconception where people think, like, I just put out a post where we talk, it's like, hey, if you're going to the gym, if you're going to weight train to lose weight, you're doing it wrong. And a lot of people go in there like that. And they're thinking that it's like you're going at it all wrong. Because if you start building muscle, that weight ain't going down anywhere.
Yeah,
All right,
that's
you're
true.
up. You're up.
All right. This is a personal question. Would you rather be the best athlete in the room or the most intelligent person? And you can't pick some combo of those two. It's either one or the other.
Okay. Well, you heard the saying, if you're the most intelligent person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yes,
I would rather be the best athlete. I could always learn something. It doesn't be not being the most intelligent could still mean that you have some brains that work. Especially if you're an athlete, you got to have some coordination. But you could always learn. So I would actually choose to be the best athlete and learn from the people in the room.
Okay.
I know what you would pick.
What would I pick?
You'd be intelligent.
Well, yeah.
It's funny because you would think you would want something that you don't have, right? You have all the intelligence in the world and no athletic ability. You think maybe you'd want
I
to
have
try that
zero
out?
athletic ability. That's why I did bodybuilding because you don't need much. I mean, you need a little coordination,
Yeah.
but I struggle with that little bit of coordination that you even need. So it's the least coordinated sport.
All right. So quick one here. Diet or exercise? Which camp are you?
Oh, diet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I
What
know
the
it makes
fuck?
a,
What?
I know I don't practice that
Yeah.
in
So
the
how are you in
moment.
that camp? You don't practice it ever. Your
Yeah.
diet for
I
competitions.
so here's the thing.
Uh,
I love exercise, and but I think it doesn't I just like to do it because I like to do it. But I think the most important factor is diet. I think that like if you have a good diet that's well-rounded, that's your appropriate caloric intake, depending on what your goal is, that's probably trumps everything. And it is the hardest thing to do because I think it's easier to go work out.
yeah, it
I'd
is.
rather run 20 miles and eat a pizza. Even though that is bad. That's not what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do.
But so I would have definitely said you were exercise because like you even tell me like when you don't run, you get very moody. You get pretty
Yeah,
upset. Like
yeah,
your whole vibe changes when you don't like get your runs in for the week.
yeah.
So I thought, you definitely choose exercise and your diet and just I don't want to get into that. So I did, yeah, you definitely surprised me with that answer.
All right. Um, let's do this one since you did this one to me a little bit. Name one person on social media that gives you pause.
It gives me pause.
Yeah.
Like, explain this pause.
Mm,
Is it pause or pause?
pause. If you're from New Jersey, it might be the other one.
No, it's pause.
It's pause.
Whatever.
Somebody that maybe you disagree with or you don't really appreciate their content.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's a ton. And I got away from doing that content to spread more positivity out on social media
I
instead of
just
so
didn't
much
say that.
negativity.
I said that maybe you should be more positive.
Yeah, I know you helped with that decision. But Adam Potash, every time I see him on TikTok doing his fucking live, I wanna go in there so bad and just like debunk everything he's saying, but I choose not to. I'm the bigger man now. But with his whole, you don't need to count calories, you don't need to track food, you don't need to work out. You just got to do intermittent fasting, and your whole life will change. Someone asked, all right, maybe I was spying on him, but someone asked in his live about using artificial sweeteners, and he said no artificial sweeteners at all. They'll get you out of your fast, and he mentioned stevia. Now, stevia is not an artificial sweetener, right? So someone said stevia is not an artificial sweetener, and his comeback was, yes, it is. It's processed. How do you think they get it into those little bags? And I was like sitting there, I'm like, how do you think they cut up my fucking chicken and put it in the packet that's in plastic? What is that? I don't like, I'm getting frustrated just talking about him. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's manipulating a bunch of people and he's giving out terrible, terrible, terrible information that will eventually harm people. But he has a bunch of minions. Well, he has a bunch of paid followers that he paid for. But he has a bunch of minions that will support him in those lives. So anybody who questions him, they all attack them. And it kind of sucks, but I guess it's good for him and his business. But he gives me the most pause. And I don't hate anybody, but I really dislike him.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. All right, we got two questions left each. So this episode's getting a little, it's not that long. It's almost on 40 minutes, I think. Let's see. Is okay. Going back to your field, is there a risk of being overly reliant on medical data?
You said medical data. I think there is no risk in becoming reliant on data, um, not just medical data. I know a lot of people might be closed off to certain types of studies, but I think data is data,
Mhm.
and that the facts outweigh feelings, as one of my favorite influencers say.
Data over feelings.
Yes, I love that. Like it's the best. I think as being in a field of science, though, you have to be very careful and to be open-minded and not, uh, you know, make the data um, make you have certain beliefs that you can't walk away from because data does always change.
Mhm.
Information does change, research changes, science changes. Things that might be true today might not be true in 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's the nature of science. And so I think people run into issues when they become closed-minded and say, get stuck on a data point that happened years ago, and that then becomes their belief. And
Mhm.
so I think that's dangerous.
Yeah, develop an identity with the data. I mean, just like as a real world example, there are some like really, really old physicians that still like what they were taught is the
Yes.
Bible, right?
Yes.
They don't want to know anything
Mm,
different, which sucks, right? It's time to like, hey, catch up on the stuff or
yeah.
get out. Um, But yeah, that's because they developed the identity. But I always think like science is going to lag behind experience because you have to experience it first in order to study it, right?
Yeah.
So
I
yeah, I
come
would,
from the public health sector, so we look at population data.
yeah,
And I think that that's where a lot of social media runs into problems, like when you actually analyze data, is because most data is done on huge numbers or acquired on huge numbers of participants or patients or subjects. And a lot of influencers will be like, well, my experience, or like my 10 clients.
yeah,
And so, which is interesting. And that's how studies begin,
yeah,
right? By observation.
yeah,
But I think when you're actually recommending something to the general population, then it has to be studied in the general population.
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. You're up.
Okay. And this is kind of goes along with what you said earlier, but I'm going to specifically ask. So we preach about the supplement industry, and some of the supplements are subpar.
Mhm.
So why do you take supplements?
Well, yeah, like you said, I alluded to it before where it's filling in gaps. It's just covering all bases. It's making sure like if it's not going to harm you by taking it, but it might be able to help you, then I would take it. So some supplements that I believe in that I would say to take would be things like vitamin D, vitamin D3. I would say you said it before that you wouldn't, or you could touch on it. But I think fish oils are a good staple to have. I also believe in taking magnesium just because of how many enzymatic reactions it's involved with within the human body. It's pretty extraordinary. Um, what else?
Creatine.
Well, yeah, creatine definitely. Um, I would say definitely for athletic purposes, but also some cognitive stuff is coming out now, which is always going to be a good thing. And if you want to talk about performance, caffeine as well, to help with performance in the gym or with whatever exercise you're doing. I would say there's some staples, but once again, don't become reliant on them. Just use it to make sure that you're covering your bases. Low dose multivitamin, would I throw that in there? I would. If you don't think you eat enough fruit and vegetables, I would definitely try to get some of that in there. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I definitely would not sit here and recommend any specific supplement unless you're in a certain age group. But I agree with the premise of, if you feel like you don't have a very good diet or you want to supplement your diet, you really should have a well-rounded diet with lots of that's nutrient dense, essentially, than a multivitamin. The one vitamin I would say for reproductive age females is a multivitamin with folic acid, in case you do become pregnant. That has been shown to help um, with neural tube defects. So, and then as you get older, depending, vitamin D can also be helpful.
Uh,
And creatine, I will say creatine if you work out.
I think even if you don't work out,
Mhm.
just lower dose. But anyway, so my last question for you, and I saved this one for last. I think it's the coolest question ever. If you could create a new fitness trend that would go viral on social media, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I think I think it's gotten better now, but I think just in general, um, two things actually. One is females should lift heavy. I think that that's becoming more of a trend now. Like there's less stigma around that about women being bulky. They're less concerned about that, I think. I hope. I think that that should be a trend that should go viral. And then I think the other one would be to, as a female, to be able to have less stigma around going through phases where you put on weight to put on potentially some more muscle. I think that should become less of an issue in the female realm. I feel like in the male realm, it's understood that you have to
Phase bro.
that you have to eat more in order to put on some muscle. You have to be in a hypercaloric state. And I feel like in females, this isn't as well accepted because we're still attached to what we look like in the mirror, and then also potentially what we weigh. And I think that if there was less stigma around that, and I think function over vanity. So what you can actually functionally do, like, can you do a PR? That I think that should be the focus.
Okay. Your last question for me, what is it?
Now I kind of want to ask you that same question.
You can't.
Instead.
You can't.
That's a good question. All right. Do you think that staying in great shape is vain?
Is vain?
Yes.
Yes. Without a doubt. I think vanity plays a huge role into it. Because you could get people that are in great shape and not really healthy.
That's true.
So I think vanity has a lot to do with it. And if you look at us like when we're younger and everyone's like, oh, well, because I got older, like my metabolism slowed down. It's not your metabolism at all until like you're in your mid 60s. What it is your priorities change from vanity to actually being an adult. But yeah, so is being in great shape vain? Of course. And I will say that, well, yeah, I'm vain about it. I don't shy away from that.
Okay.
But it's not.
You're not narcissistic.
Yeah, narcissistic about it.
We look to make sure
Yeah.
the diagnostic criteria.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
yeah, okay. So yeah, so that's it. It was a little bit longer episode, but more of a personal touch we wanted to throw out there for you. We will see you all next week. So on behalf of Balanced Bodies, we just want to say thank you for joining us on this episode of the Balanced Bodies Blueprint.
We are committed to bringing valuable content. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd greatly appreciate it if you can take a moment and like it and leave a 5-star review.
On Apple, just go to the show, scroll down to the bottom and rate it there. If you're on Spotify, go to the show's page, click the 3 dots, and you can rate it there as well.
And if you believe in the power of knowledge, share this episode on your social media to try and get the information out there to as many people as possible.
And as you navigate your own path towards better health, remember that Balanced Bodies is forever in your corner. See you all next week.
The podcast content may include discussions of medical topics and health-related information. However, the information provided should not be considered exhaustive or complete, and it should not be relied upon as a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment.